I'm John Sicotte, executive editor of the Brewer Magazine, the Brewer Magazine podcast going on today. And usually what we do is we bring in someone from a brewery, talk about a certain topic, and be able to share it with you. But we did this a while back when we had the audio-only podcast a few years ago. And now that we're kind of doing video, we want to be able to bring in, since we're having a new audience, and give you some kind of behind the scenes look of what Brewer Mag is about, what we like to do, and also explain what our test kitchen is. So I'm bringing in the guy that somehow he snagged me and made me work for him 10, 13 years ago now. Tyler Montgomery, who is our president of No Walls Media and Brewer Mag, and also the founder of A Better Brewing in Winchester, Kentucky. How's it going, buddy?
What's up, man?
Not much. It's nice, I think just because I got kicked in the butt from a guy at Sonder Brewing to finally start doing some video stuff and using these different video capabilities. And I know that it seems to be working well. And, I'm excited to continue to keep the video broadcast going.
That's the whole reason Brewer exists. Somebody was like, hey, I'd like to have this in print.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the B2B market, since I've been in it for the last 15, 16 years, it's been perpetually growing. It's one of the only print mediums that still grows by 30 or 40% every year. It's wild. But my thought when launching Brewer, I was like, dude, everybody's going digital. Nobody has time to sit down and read. And then they were like, no, we keep our phones away from us because they're just constantly blowing up, which I understand now. But, we switched over to the print edition, and that was 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But it's to your point, we listen to our readers, and that's what we do. So Here we are, video podcast.
Yep, video podcast. And the one thing that has always stuck with me when we started this magazine was, especially the online content, it needs to be quick. And I want that with the video podcast as well. I think sometimes you see a podcast headline and you want to get into it and it's 75 minutes long or 2 hours long. And there's a lot of useless stuff. I want to get we're going to talk on these two subjects and we're going to get it out there. It's going to be 20 minutes long and you're going to go on with your day, or if it's your drive to work, things like that. We want to keep those things quick and accessible and not feel like you need all week to be able to get through, one thing with a lot of drivel in it. There'll be a lot of drivel on this one though, because it's talking. But
100%. I listen to the only podcast I really listen to is Rogan's and this Founders podcast that I got turned on to. And it's kind of cool from time to time. But they do dribble on for forever. If you're not driving or doing something that you can listen to for a long time, they can kind of go in weird directions and they're 2 hours long. I'll go to the gym and put on a Rogan podcast and listen to it for a week. So it's just, sometimes I'm not going to listen to it all the time. And I'm not one to listen to podcasts in my car. I want my music.
Oh, no, I'm a drive, and it's only when I'm driving long distances. If I'm just running, up the road, and I barely leave my house because I work from home. So when I do leave, the radio's on. But then at the same time, if it's okay, well, I'm going to be driving, I'm going to be going to Philadelphia later on this spring, that'll be podcast time. I will backlog hours of podcasts, and it'll just be that. It goes so much quicker for me. And but it's weird if I'm flying, not listening to podcasts. It's movies. I don't know why. I've never understood that.
I go back and forth when I'm driving long distance. I like my music, but I'll go to a podcast. It's just, if it's intriguing, it's great. If it's one of those slow, monotone type voices, I'm going to fall asleep. So
you want me to my NPR voice for when I worked for an NPR station in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in college?
And how do they adjust their mics so they get so much wetness?
I'm not a sound engineer, but listening to NPR is just so wet.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, guys, calm the mic down.
Exactly.
There used to be this older lady that was on NPR during the afternoons, early afternoons, 11 to noon or 10 to noon or something. I can't remember her name. She was super famous. but it was so hard to listen to her because it was like you were just constantly hearing her swallow.
Oh, not fun. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of the get people introduced, even though we've been around forever. They finally get a chance to see our faces and not just our voices, or when the only time people get to see us is usually CBC or if we're in person at a brewery. Give me a little background on yourself, and, lead into, then we'll get into how we met and we'll go back and forth. So yeah, tell me a little bit about, just how you got to how you got Brewer here and how you even got into the industries that you are a part of.
Long story short, I wanted to build a magazine when I was 16 years old. I wanted it to be entertainment based, something around music, because that was what my whole life had been around. And then went to journalism school at the University of Kentucky, mainly because I'm from Kentucky, just outside of Lexington. And I didn't know at the time that people actually could go out of state to go to school. It was just, I wasn't brought up in this whole family lineage of university grads. I wasn't the first to graduate, but it was still, I didn't really know the direction. So graduated from there, went to Hawaii, worked in newspaper for a little bit. When I came back, was trying to get a job and got lucky with Jay, who brought me up to Crawfordsville, and that's where I met you. We worked at the Journal Review, was there for a year. Then took the job with Club Solutions, which was my first B2B publication as an associate editor. Mm-hmm. I guess that was like 2009, maybe. And within a few months, our editor quit and I got promoted. It was a small company, but it was growing really fast, and stayed on there for about 8 years, grew that business. And in doing some consulting work on the side with some people in Lexington that were doing a bourbon publication for consumers, I wanted to do something sort of in the same realm that they were doing. But I'm not a big bourbon fan. I know that's blasphemous being in Kentucky. I have my favorites, but that's just not my drink of choice. Beer's always been kind of my drink of choice since I was old enough to drink. So there's, what's that?
Probably before too.
Well, old enough to drink, not legally. No, I only drank when I was legally of age. Okay. But I always been into craft, and so I just craft was growing really fast in Kentucky at the time. Places like Country Boy, Wessex had just opened, and I was Against the Grain, of course, was there too. BBC, which is now Goodwood, and so I was living in Louisville. Kind of came up with this idea for a magazine centered around craft, but there were a lot of these, craft type players, magazines kind of like Beer and Brewing, I think was already around, maybe stuff like that. But it was all very like consumer review type information. It wasn't really geared towards what I thought that the brewers were trying to actually come across with it. And being a musician, I kind of like the idea of how Rolling Stone would interview the artists and try and talk to them about what they're trying to convey with their music. And I wanted to do the same thing with Brewer, with interviewing these breweries. I wanted to talk to the brewer, and I wanted him or her to tell me what they're trying to develop and things like that. It was a different road in the beginning just because I wanted it to be a consumer angle. I wanted consumers to read it. And then I quickly realized we did have some consumers reading it, but the vast majority of readers were the brewers themselves. And that kind of just switched over. And one day, in maybe late 2013, maybe early 2014, I was like, I'm going to switch to business strategy because that's what I knew anyways. Made that flip, started selling it, and we launched the first Brewer magazine in late 2014 with Sam Cruz on the cover. And then we'd built up so many, you had started doing some writing for us in and around there, maybe like
I think July 14, yeah.
Yeah. So we started doing some of that writing and using long form journalism on the print side. Like you said earlier, short, quick stories online. Of course, we weren't doing 7 days a week then. We were doing, maybe a story a week, maybe a couple. And then, once you came on full time, that's when we switched to gearing up to the 7 days a week. And but even then, in the early days, we had already built up such a good base of readers and people that followed our website that we could very quickly flip this to a print edition and have people on the cover like I wanted to do and how we have done with almost every publication I ever worked with. Jay was really big on that. People on the cover, put people on the cover. People like to see people. And then when I worked at Club, that was a big thing that they were doing. And I just kind of followed that strategy. And it was something I believe in too. I think people on the cover of a magazine as opposed to just seeing a beer or anything like that, just it resonates deeper. So we started doing that from Sam Cruz. It was a quick little email. A guy named Brian Simpson was the marketing director at New Belgium at the time, and I've been talking with him a lot about different stories. And it was like, hey, you think Kim would want to be on the cover? And he was like, I'll get back to you. And he got back to me in like 15 minutes, like, we'd love to. So then we got Kim Jordan. Then we got the founders of Founders, and then we had Tony McGee from Lagunitas, and just snowball from there. I was looking at back issues yesterday, and it was literally that order. And then I think, Sweetwater, Jim Cook from Boston Beer Company. I mean, just, the who's who of the brewing industry in the first 2 years, and it just continued from there. But yeah, I guess that's kind of how I got here and where we're at now.
Yeah. I was trying to pull up I have the entire list of brewer covers that I have in Google, like a whole list. But yeah, New Belgium Founders, Lagunitas, Terrapin, Sam Adams, Sweetwater, Avery, Left Hand, Schlafly, and Boulder were our first 11 covers. And, as the industry has changed, so have we. We do understand now that, the growth is definitely in the smaller section. The tap room model seems to be the thing that is driving growth for a lot of people. There's still a lot of obviously production breweries that we like to talk to as well, but it really the sharing of information and the information that wants to be consumed is definitely tap room model type stuff. So it's been an interesting change over these 10 years. But yeah, like kind of introducing myself, my background is in broadcast sports journalism, and I did that all the way up until 2006, working at a TV station in Flint, Michigan, switching over to radio, doing sports play-by-play. And the only newspaper writing experience I had coming out of college was my buddy Jason, who wanted me to just fill in and cover the girls basketball team that year, and I think they made the Elite Eight in Division II for Northern Michigan University. So it was a fun ride. I got to learn how to write, but I always wanted to be on radio or TV. And then all of a sudden, I'm a few years in of television and had some background with some newspapers. So they had me starting to lay out the weather page for the Flint Journal from our TV station and sending that information. So I got to learn InDesign that way, and it became the entryway to becoming the sports editor of a weekly in Carroll, Michigan, and also because I was 29 or something at the time and dumb, full-time job in radio, doing afternoon drives plus a play-by-play for high school sports in the thumb of Michigan, along with running the weekly newspaper. So working 70 to 80 hours a week and commuting a lot all over the place. But
you kind of do that now. You still do that.
I've never not had more than just one job. Like and even if it's just volunteer work, I volunteered or not volunteer, I do get paid there at a radio station, very part-time. Now I'm bartending a little at the curling club here in the Bowling Green, Ohio area, because I'm located outside of Toledo in Perrysburg, Ohio. In fact, I'll bring this up really quick. There's my house. See, we work from home. You work from you've moved your office. You work from home. Now you're at the brewery.
Yeah.
But so I ended up in Crawfordsville, Indiana after a few years, and you came in right after me, right? We both started.
Because you were still living in the apartment complex that Jay tried to get us all to live in. which was
I lived in a broom closet, and it literally was a broom closet. It was, I want to say it might have been smaller than an average jail cell.
there's places in the country you should do. You're probably going to have to do that, but Crawfordsville's not that place.
No, but I lived there for, I think it was like 3 months. And then my wife, who was at Saginaw Valley State at the time, got a job at Purdue. We moved up to Lafayette, Indiana, and then we bought a house. Thought we were going to be there for a while, and that was right around recession time, and we ended up leaving. But I ended up going to the Toledo Blade after you left. The Crawfordsville Journal Review, ended up working at the Toledo Blade for a couple of years. But when you brought this up to me, and I think like 2014, I thought, okay, yeah, I can help out. I was homebrewing. I just started homebrewing a few years before that. You wanted a homebrew segment. So if you actually go back through the archives of Brewer, the first ones are just me writing about the beer that I was making, which I should actually remake those recipes because those were some terrible recipes probably.
And maybe shift some of those articles a little bit.
Yeah, by no means am I, the best brewer, but I know I'm better than I was when I was there. But yeah, you gave me this opportunity, and then like end of December 2015, you were like, "We got to go full time on this." So we ended up, making this a full time thing in 2016, and started working full time. You can go through, hon. Oh. My wife, right behind me. There she goes. Again, we work from home. She works from home. She's a COVID work from home person though, and her job just decided to let her stay at home. But yeah, 2016, I've been working from home now and hanging out. Basically, like everyone that wants to talk to me there. This is what I'm doing. Usually the dogs are in here. I think there is one dog back here. R2's here. Houston, he's loud, so I just keep him away. We had one podcast ruined because of him barking at something, a squirrel. But
I usually have my lab Jack in here. We've got Piper across the way from me with John. John, the operations manager for Better. And then we've got Twig, which is another dog for our head brewer who's out there brewing, and she goes and lays and watches him brew.
So cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how we ended up here. I mean, we've been, and it's crazy to think that, we've been doing this as a magazine for 10 years, and I just hit 8 years full time here. And it's been awesome. The industry's changed a lot, but it's been good. And I always thought we could, no matter what happened in the brewing industry, we would have this magazine to be able to share that information. And I very much go under that auspicion of we're sharing business resources with people, being able to talk to them. In fact, I just had a brewery last night ask me, what are you going to do with this information? And I'm like, I'm sharing it. I'm telling your story because there's some brewery out there that is thinking about this same question and how they can go about it. And if they can share a little bit of information, or even just be like, hey, and I've had this happen. They read a story from us and they're like, I'm just going to contact them. They don't contact me. They just someone else contacted the brewery that I interviewed because they saw that they were doing something and they wanted to be able to get that information. And all of a sudden we're connecting breweries from Ohio and Massachusetts. I mean, It is really cool to be able to have that happen. And that's how I think we are unique. We don't try. I never try to go into an interview with an agenda. I mean, obviously I have a topic, but I want to be able to share exactly what they want to share, how they want to share it. And no one has the perfect right answer every single time, but they have their opinion on how it works, and someone else might be able to get something from that. So that's kind of how we've always approached how we do the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, having, a Better will be 5 in April. So having done the magazine and interviewed a ton of brewers and brewery owners, as well as, owning a brewery for 5 years, there's something I don't believe, there's a million books out there on how to open a brewery, but I don't think there's any one way anymore to do it. I mean, we started on a barrel and a half system. Now we're on a 10. I don't recommend that, but if you shifted it properly and handled it the right way, I mean, there's so many of us that did start out that way. We did. Jackalope used barrel and a half system for a while when they were first getting open. Country Boy started out in the same situation, and then they moved to a 10. I mean, right now we're seeing this strange evolution of people with 10 to 15 barrel brew houses just killing it, and the ones that had never expanded to a 20, 30 plus brew house, and just stayed with a 10, that 10's almost paid off, or it is paid off, and they're making some really good money with this. I'm not saying everybody that went big, Country Boy went big and they're fine, but every day I get a bid spotter and all the equipment's 30 barrel tanks. It's all 30 plus barrel fermenters and 160s and stuff like that. And the ones with they'll all be sitting there at like $5, for a 30 barrel bright tank, and you're like, oh, like why? But then you go find the 10s, and the 10s, or if you can find a 15, I mean 15s are so rare, but if you can find a 10 or a 20 even, I mean the price just goes through the roof. A 10-year-old, 15-year-old canning line will cost you upwards of $20,000 to $50,000, and it's already had 2 million cans run through it. So it's the industry is in a different space. I think we saw that with the pullback in the late 2010s, the late, what would be like, you consider that the 2015 area, like 15 to like maybe 2020, you were starting to see a lot of these West Coast breweries pulling back and just not distributing East as much. Your Avery's still do, your Left Hands still do, your New Belgiums, of course, Sierra Nevada and whatnot. Well, I mean, Sierra Nevada and New Belgium now are in Asheville as well. So, but a lot of those bigger companies all pulled back to better service their own communities. And, their community may be just the county they're in. Their community may be a region. But it allowed them to better control sales and the conversation around their beer and other products that they might be making. So I think we started seeing that, and now it's hitting the East Coast and certain other places. We're seeing bigger breweries pull back, but then you're seeing other breweries, taking off and continuing to grow and pick up new states. And, like Wiseacre, we just had on the cover, which I got that in the mail the other day. Our mailbox here at the brewery is treacherous. Yeah,
those two. Which this is one of my new favorite covers, by the way.
Oh yeah.
They had fun with it.
I've had a lot of recommendations on it, a lot of respect on this cover.
Yeah, they asked for some recommendations on what to do, and I said, have fun with it.
Yeah,
they have fun with it. Well, the other big thing that's happening at Brewer, and I think it's one of those things where we always talked about it, and I think it thank you, malware and hackers. Our website is new. This is the new Brewer Magazine website. We just launched it the week before Easter. Some new looks, and Tyler, you kind of spent the last weekend getting this thing kind of up to snuff. It's still a little bit like work in progress type thing. Oh, here, I gotta go back. I'll just do this. I'll just get that off there. Remove. All right, so we got a chance to look at it, and good job on it. It's a little bit of learning curve on the back end for us. So I know some people have already emailed me like, hey, we're getting like Google alert updates from stories that are 3 years old. Like, what's going on? I'm like, well, our SEO is working for once.
Yeah.
So
it had been working.
Yeah.
I liked the theme that we had, and I didn't want to change off of it. But I mean, like you said, thanks to hackers and malware back in December, we had to make an adjustment, which was the greatest week of all time. December 15th was when it started happening. It also coincided with the first canning we ever did at a Better. I'm on the canning line. Our website's going down, and it took down every single website we had. So, it was just, we got it fixed. We got it all working again. I knew that the theme was outdated, but I loved that theme. It worked so well when it worked. And then, it's just I wanted it to have a fresh look. I've been working on it for the last year, so and kind of messing with it for the last 2 years, honestly. And then you kind of it pushes you a little bit when you get hacked again. So here we are.
Yeah,
and
well,
it's going to take some time to get everything worked out and get it smoothed out the way we want it. But yeah, I'm pleased with the way it came out.
Yeah. And it's nice that, and the feedback that we've gotten from people is it feels more content heavy, but we haven't actually added anything. Like, we haven't done more. It's just being displayed better, I think.
Yeah. It just allowed us to have more sections and kind of be more, I don't know, show what we do on a homepage versus you have to go through menus to find certain things. Yeah, it just compounded a lot of what we do, which there's a lot of what we do, from cideries to talking about the supplier side of the business, manufacturers to, all the brewing strategies, brew reviews, test kitchens, all the things. I mean, there's just the podcast, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah.
My favorite thing to do when I either meet someone for the first time that doesn't know what I do, or even just friends of mine who want to tell their friends, oh, John works for a beer magazine. That's always the first thing. And then people think, oh, you sit around and drink beer all the day. And I'm like, no, here's my website. Go ahead, take a look at a few headlines. And they go, that's not what I was thinking.
That's not what I thought. That's what I always get. So you get to sample a lot of beer, huh? And I'm like, actually, he gets all the beer. And I don't hardly ever get anything. Well, but we make beers. I mean, I get that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And again, it's not just me and you too. I think some, people obviously on the supplier side know, but Riley Watkins has been with us 8 years now.
Yeah, long time. He's our publisher, so he's been with us for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
And I met him at Club. We were working on I had helped build another brand called Box Pro for CrossFit, and that's no longer around. But Riley came on to help sell for Box Pro, and I left. Then he left, and then we finally got him to come work for us. So he's been with us ever since.
Yeah, and it's a good team. The three of us have been kind of the core. We've had other people in sales, some writers, Miles Smith helping us with Vintner, and I'm blanking on the name. Oh, we changed Modern Winemaker, and so we've had some, and then Callie Miller. Yep, and so we've had some great people come through. We want to continue to cover the industry as best as we can, and be able to share, again, insights that matter to those people. Like, I think the hardest thing for me is when I get an email, I want to be able to make sure that I'm giving the best questions. And I do. It's funny. I was at the California Craft Brewers Summit last year, and I ran into some people, and they're like, you give us the best but toughest questions. It makes us think. It's not just promoting their business to consumers. Yeah. It is sharing that information with those that are going to be reading it that actually understand the industry. So that's the biggest compliment I can get. I've never wanted, and I think this kind of had something to do with it, is like, I've been on TV early in my life, and I always wanted to be the ESPN guy and stuff like that, and be TV famous. And so I think I shied away from wanting to do stuff with the video podcast. I'm like, it's not about me. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the people that we're interviewing, which made it easy when it was just, print. But I think to bring people in and get their face on there as well, is really important. And it's been great to be able to talk to, the guys at 42 North and Dewey, and the people that I'm going to be lining one up with the Yards on Monday. We're going to talk about Tom Keogh's virtual tastings. So that's going to be something that's going to be coming out here in the next few weeks as well. So it's been good. I think it helps bring it to exactly what Brewer has always been about, and that's making sure that we get people and information out there.
Yeah, it's about sharing. I mean, it's about doing what you can to share, business strategies that actually work. We're not just talking to a brewery because they're the biggest brewery in the country right now, or they have this new hype beer. It's talking to a brewery that has successfully run a business or has successfully run a business in a certain way and how they've gone through that, thinking about, Southern Grist in Nashville. We were talking to them about self-distribution in Nashville. And it's just like, I mean, there's so much. There's people out there that are doing so many cool things. I mean, 50 states with breweries with endless amounts of differences in laws, and they're all doing different things to make their businesses good. Some have great tap rooms and great food. Some of them just have, distribution. Some of them do self-distribution in a tap room. Some of them do, pride themselves almost more on their food than they do their beer, and that's totally fine. All these things, there's more than one way to live in this industry. And that's, people come in, and there used to be all this, like, not hate, but like kind of just, a sour place for, a brewery opening, doing, when seltzers became big, it's like, oh, they're doing a seltzer now. It's like, there's a million ways to do this business, and it's a fun business. Like, we're all creatives here. So it's like, we don't want to make the same IPA every single day. There's a way to make seltzer fun. There's a way to make cider fun. There's a way to make anything fun. It's just, most of us aren't big production breweries. We're, doing, a few thousand to maybe 10,000 barrels a year. That's the vast majority of this industry. And while that seems low, that's 5,000 barrels is a lot of barrels. I mean, that's a successful business. So, and there's a lot to be taken from some of these people. So, I mean, when you're getting up into the 30,000+ barrels, those people are killing it in business and doing a great job. And they need to be, thanked for what they've done, and they can share insights, because when you have 30,000 barrels, you start at one, and so does everybody else. And that's the story.
Yep.
You do a great job of sharing that insight and grabbing those details on why certain things work. And, that's all we really want to know, day to day, like, why does this work or why does that work? Why'd they go that direction? I don't know. And luckily the brewing industry is very collaborative, and we love to talk and share stories and, insights into what works, because if we're growing, you're growing, and everybody's growing, and we're all having a good time.
Well, awesome. We've talked a lot. We shared some stuff. We still had stuff we could talk about. We'll save it for the next time. We got a lot. We got a lot to talk about. Me and Tyler, we have the conversations that we usually end up having are, I'm actually afraid to call sometimes, because we end up on the phone way too long. Because we've known each other for so long, but it turns in these are the conversations that we have off camera. Like, we talk about this stuff all the time, whether it's planning for what Brewer is, or even just how the business is going on both ends for us. So,
well, it's crazy to think about how long we work on things behind the scenes. We've been talking about we've started a podcast, stopped doing a podcast, started doing a podcast, stopped doing that podcast. And then we started talking about video podcasting probably about this time last year. And here it is. You think that what feels like a long time also feels like a short time. Like, the turnaround on that felt really quick. And it's just, you spearheaded it, and here we go. It's like, all right, you just kind of got to start, You
just got to push that boulder a little bit and then eventually start moving. Don't forget, you can always check on brewermag.com. You can also see us on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify. And don't forget daily updates on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I'm Executive Editor John Sicotte for brewermagazine.com.